Um, when you want to see stuff and in your head, it makes sense, but you can't get it out verbally and you can't articulate what you want to say. Um, my, uh, doctors will describe my situation as medically complex, and lots of patients are called medically complex. But I think the medical community made my situation complex through with medications and medications causing problems and them misdiagnosing various things and misdiagnosing health issues as anxiety, or misdiagnosing physical health issues as a mental health issue, and misdiagnosing serious medication side effects as mental health issues. The medical community can make your medical situation way more complex than it is. And then when I got severely medically injured, you run to the people who have accidentally harmed you for help. You're running to the people who accidentally harmed you. You're running to the same people for help because you need them. You need medical help. There's nowhere else to run to but back to them. And then you're horrified because they're refusing to be transparent, and they're refusing to have honest, transparent conversations with you about what's medically happening to you. What happened to me was, I decided to wean off of all the medications to try to fight for my life and to try to figure out what's actually medically wrong with me and to try to fight for proper diagnosis. I weaned off all the medications, and in doing that, I was severely injured and almost killed weaning off of 2 of the medications. And here's the tough part. Here's the shocking part. You're in a state of injury. You're in a state of medical trauma. You're terrified. You're traumatized. And me, in my case, severely, critically sleep deprived. I'm half out of my mind, or more than half out of my mind. I'm in medical crisis, and I need them to try to help me figure out what's happening. And to my horror, I'm meeting with doctors who won't be transparent. I'm meeting with people who've put a wall up and they're unwilling to be honest. I'm meeting with people who are way more educated than me, that may have the information that I need, but they're unwilling to give it. And they're viewing me, and I'm sitting there all discombobulated, and you don't understand that many or most doctors will now view you as an enemy because you've been injured by them. And they're afraid, and I hate to talk about this because people will argue about this, and it's irrelevant, but yet it's still relevant because it still affects the behavior of doctors here. Lawsuits, medical negligent lawsuits, are not going to happen in Canada. They're not. It's not like the United States. It's rare that you win a medical negligence case, and you have to be extremely wealthy to win a medical case here. So that's not going to happen. And they know I'm not working, and they know that's not going to happen. But yet they're afraid when you're medically injured, they still view you as a potential enemy, and they will put walls up, and they won't speak transparently with you about what's happening with your health due to the injury, and their knee-jerk reaction is to protect each other, and they're taught and trained to protect each other from patients. So, they're trained. See, the medical system in Canada is different from the States. And see, where I live, all the doctors are employed by the same employer. They're all, it's not everyone's using different insurance and blah, blah, blah. And I don't even know how or where where doctors get paid from. Where do their actual paychecks come from in the States? From each state, or how do they get paid? I don't know. But I know here, all these doctors are under the same umbrella. They've all got the same employer. They're all in this together. It's not like they're all against us, but they're trained to protect each other. They're trained not to throw a colleague under the bus. When I was way over medicated and reaching out and asking, getting a second opinion, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth opinion, none of these doctors would say, yeah, this first doctor is way over medicating you. They're not going to speak disparagingly about another doctor in the community. So there's no one to protect you. If your medical care isn't okay with your doctor that you trust, if your doctor is doing something wrong and other doctors are whispering, going, holy shit, like, what are they doing? What are they doing with her? They're not going to speak up to you. They're trained not to speak negatively about other doctors in the community, even when they see something wrong. So you're uneducated, you feel like something's wrong with your medical care, you feel like you're being misdiagnosed or overdrugged, so you reach out for help to the healthcare system or to the disciplinary board of the doctors, and they will say, well, find another doctor if you're not happy. Well, you go for a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. All those other people that you ask for another opinion are not going to tell you the truth because they're trained not to speak negatively about each other, about the doctor that you're under their care, and the care isn't okay. So you're desperate, you're being made sick, but there is nowhere to turn to for help. And when you're drugged up and vulnerable and cognitively impaired, you're in trouble. You're backed into a corner with no way out unless you find somebody educated, but you don't know that. You don't know that. You keep seeking the help and care of other doctors. You don't know. On, even if you're cognitively impaired, you're even if you're confused and mixed up in the head, on some level, something's not on the up and up here. Something's wrong. You're being gaslighted. You're being deceived on some level, but you can't figure it out. So they really put you in a bad position. So, for example, when I was absolutely in crisis with severe sleep apnea, and I was asking very valid questions like, could these medications have caused apnea? Could these medications have reduced made it unable for me to sleep? Could these medications, all these relative intelligent questions, the specialist is sitting right in front of me, 3 feet away from me. I mean, really close to me, looking right at me, refusing to answer my questions. Doesn't matter how terrified you are, how much in medical crisis you are, they were 100% unwilling to be helpful when I'm in medical crisis. So what I wanted to say is with me, with this health crisis, and it became really complex because of medications, because of misdiagnosis and stuff, multiple misdiagnosis. What I wanted to say about one particular aspect of my medical crisis here is my lack of drive to breathe. So I have Chiari malformation. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. My lack of drive to breathe, like your body not wanting to breathe. For years, I would get into bed at night. My body didn't want to breathe. My ability to breathe was being taken from me, and my lack of drive to breathe became worse and worse. Now, medically, I'm thinking, okay, where would that be coming from? Why is that happening? It could be the Chiari malformation, my brain condition. It could be sleep apnea, but you can't tell a patient that, oh, well, your body doesn't want to breathe during the day. You're stopping breathing during the day because you have sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is when you're asleep at night. So you can't tell a patient that, which they tried to tell me. So then I'm thinking, and I'm researching, and I'm reading and stuff. I was being overprescribed sleeping pills and benzos for years. Could that have caused a lack of drive to breathe? Well, the answer is yes. But there's no doctors that will have a transparent conversation with you about that. So you're seeing all these medical specialists in your community, but the conversations are limited to, what they want to talk about. They refuse to talk about anything that has been caused by medical care, iatrogenic stuff. They're refusing to talk about what you may be sick from that has been caused by medical care, by what has been done to you. So you're sitting there with a grade 12 education, and you're expected to navigate all of this. You're expected to be as smart as a doctor to figure out what's really happening, because they're refusing to answer loads of your questions that may be related to iatrogenesis, a harm that has been caused by medications or medical care. So here I've got these big lingering questions that will remain forever. Where the lack of drive to breathe, is that from my Chiari, or is that from being overprescribed medications? You know what it's like working with, talking to 15 doctors, 15 specialists. No one wants to be transparent. No one wants to give their professional opinion, because so they'll refuse to answer your questions, and they don't want to see you again once you've asked very direct questions that they don't want to answer. You see them once and that's it. They don't want to see you again, because they feel like they're put in an uncomfortable position to speak about what may have been done to you. So you're really in a difficult spot.